The reason why I came to Afghanistan to cover the current situation of the country was because as I kept reading the news of the official withdrawal of the United States troops from Afghanistan, as well as NATO and other foreign entities that were in the country, I felt that the situation was going to become very complicated, especially for the Afghan people, because it was a quick withdrawal and I didn't think it was well planned out. As I kept reading about the situation, that the Taliban was quickly advancing. The Taliban was quickly taking over major cities and areas of the country. I felt that I arrived to Kandahar on the 9th of August, and during the first couple of days, things seemed to be very normal in the sense that the front line was in the mountainous areas of the city. It had not infiltrated and not gotten into the city yet. There was your constant fighting, the Afghan security forces fighting the Taliban, preventing them from getting close or coming into the city. But things changed really quickly. It was very interesting that when it's night, the firefights, the bombings, the ongoing combat kept on going throughout the night. The previous days, you would hear combat explosions now and then. But on this night, the combats and explosion were continuously. They went all night into the morning. And as the firefights and explosions continue in the morning, they also sounded a lot closer. This meant, and I felt, that the fighting in the front line had already reached the city, the inner city. Early in the morning, decided to go out and go see what the situation was. And once on the street, you could hear the firefights, you could hear the bombing, you could hear the explosions. That same day, after spending a while in that area, I decided to go visit the hospital. At the hospital, the scene was another sad situation. You had many civilians, including children, that were being treated either for gunshot wounds or shrapnel. All of them had been injured the previous day and the previous night during the heavy fighting between the Afghan security forces, the fighting between the Afghan security forces and the Taliban. You had also many soldiers there that had been wounded. While visiting the different emergency rooms where these victims were being treated, you could hear the explosions and you could hear the fighting that was getting really close to the city. You could tell by the sound of them. You could tell by the sound of it that the front line was not that far from the city, was not that far from the hospital. Sure enough, the next day, the Taliban had already entered the city. They were very close to the city center. And you could tell around the city that this was happening. The previous days, the city was normal, business as usual, daily life. Street vendors selling, shops open, people going about their day, buying their produce. It was a normal sense of life. But on this day, it was quieter. Many shops were closed. There weren't that many people on the streets. This gave a sense that the city was already worried that the Taliban would eventually come in and take over the city. And sure enough, on Friday morning, the city was officially taken over by the Taliban. They had officially taken over Kandahar. The Taliban paraded around the streets, celebrating their victory. Within 40 hours after Kandahar had fallen into the Taliban's hands, the world got the news that Kabul was being handed over to the Taliban in a peaceful way to avoid heavy fighting, to avoid more casualties in this already complicated conflict. The Taliban had finally achieved its goal of taking power of the nation's capital. This meaning that they were now in control of the whole country. When this happened, we all have seen the sad images of thousands of Afghans trying to flee the country, thousands of Afghans heading to the airport, trying to escape. And ever since, the airport and the area around the airport has been the epicenter of this tragic situation. Thousands of Afghans desperately trying to enter the airport in order to be evacuated to either the United States or other countries. This caused many people to try to get out And we have seen, and we know now of the sad situation of 2 suicide bombers that attacked one of the gates where hundreds of Afghans were trying to go in to the airport in order to be evacuated. This created a tense and even more tense situation. This added a layer of fear. These attacks added a layer of fear, added a layer of problems to an already problematic Afghanistan. It also made the Afghans realize that those years of suffering car bombs and suicide bombers around the city, around the country, were not over. Even though they thought that even if the Taliban was in power, they were no longer going to have to suffer those kind of tragic moments. And now that dream, that idea had fallen, and now they know that they're going to have to face these sad situations once again. In the human rights aspect, there's situations where many are being persecuted because of them being outspoken against the Taliban, because they want a modern society, because they want a more just country, because they don't want a full Islamic state, extremist state. So some people have fled their homes and moved to another home, either family member or friends, while trying to see if they could get out of the country. These people fear for their lives. Some of them have been able to get out, others haven't, and others won't. The situation here is very tense. At the airports, they are beaten by the Taliban. They're constantly being pushed away by firing their weapons up in the air, causing a very traumatic situation for the people, especially for the children that are there with their families trying to get out. Taliban trying to control the masses, and within this scenario of trying to control the masses, they become abusive towards the people, hitting them with wooden sticks, with the end of their rifles, with rubber pieces that are used as whips. So this is what the Afghan people that are trying to leave are dealing with. In the city of Kabul has changed 360. There's not that many people on the street anymore. Yes, you have people that go out and do their thing. You have people that go shopping. You have small businesses. You have informal vendors that are on the street selling their products. But even them, they tell me, they have expressed that they're worried because they don't sell as much as they did. Because there isn't that many people on the streets. There's about 60% drop of human behavior, of people just going around the city. They are being hit financially. And this is one of the issues that Afghanistan is gonna face, and it's gonna face soon, is the shortages of basic needs or basic products. There's already an issue about banks not being open. There's already an issue of not having dollars to be able to exchange. There's no dollars in the country. So all these factors are making people worry about what the future of Afghanistan is, or what the future of Afghanistan will be.